you. And first of all, thank you very much to Brahmaputra board for giving me this opportunity to come here and to be with you and share whatever I have known during my of about 33 years in Central Water Commission. Before that, a few years. So overall, today the topic that has been given is procurement challenges, and as per schedule it says cautioning some cautioning highlights for tendering. So I thought it better to make the subject like this: procurement challenges, risks and mitigation. Means whatever risks are involved when we go for procurement, especially in public procurement. So whenever we go for public procurement, what are the challenges? So I think it would be better if we can interact. So what do you think? There are challenges at two levels: at your personal level, at the organization level. So let us first focus on personal level. What do you feel is the challenge in public procurement? Any one of you? Transparency, very good. Transparency is one thing. It must be ensured. Genuineness, yes, that is also right. I think some of you are some of you have joined almost within a year or so. So if you can also think of what are the challenges that you may have faced or you may face during your service period, coming days. Availability of desired product, yes, that is also one thing, particularly in northeastern area where supply constraints are there, both in respect of manpower, machinery and also goods. What else? See, I told you that from the personal point of view, entirely personal, right? What is it that an engineer fears when he is posted in the field? If I am doing certain public procurement and as a result of whatever may be the reason, some departmental inquiry comes behind me and it continues for years, stopping my all career progression for considerably long, right? At personal level, this is the biggest challenge that you may face. You may face at every stage of decision making. मैं ये टेंडर डॉक्यूमेंट सही बनाया हूं कि नहीं बनाया हूं, पीक्यू क्राइटेरिया मेरा सही है कि नहीं है, मेरा एस्टिमेट सही बना है कि नहीं बना है, फिर उसके बाद then the procedures etc. will start. At every stage there are pitfalls that we can call challenges, right? And how do we meet them? And it is simple to meet them. It is nothing very difficult. So let us focus on that. What will happen? How do I behave or how do I carry out my duties of public procurement so that neither I nor the department nor the work suffers? How it can be ensured? What are the minimum basic requirements? पहला तो यही है कि मेरे अगेंस्ट कोई डिपार्टमेंटल इंक्वायरी ना हो, राइट? तो कैसे नहीं होगा? आपका द फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट थिंग इज द वर्क दैट यू आर डूइंग. इट मस्ट बी डन विद इन टाइम with appropriate quality, that is desired quality, right? Then it must be done at reasonable rates. Then it should have been done in a very fair manner without giving undue benefits to anyone. Very fair, impartial. Then as you said, the process must have been transparent. What do we mean by transparent? Means at every stage what we are doing We are recording it and it is nothing hidden. It is public. Anybody can see what decision we are taking, what is our rationale for that decision making, why we are doing something that we are doing, right? And it is open. Then it is based on rules. Then the third thing is it must be reasonable. Reasonability of rates, that is the very important thing. But also there are other tests of reasonableness. Means, for example, your procurement should be logically related to your need. That is also a kind of reasonableness. So these are the things, and then apply. You must have the basics of procurement rules, regulations, and as you go on and on, just go on studying. Whenever you are engaged in a work, just go through the contract. Normally we don't go through the contract document. Why? Because the same thing is written over there. Not even an comma is changed in GCC. So normally we don't go through GCC. But it is a good practice if once in a month, if you are in the field, you are executing some work, once in a while, in 1 or 2 months, you go through the entire GCC. Also the works which you are doing, their drawings, their special conditions of contract, all these things must be in your memory, right? Must be in your memory immediate. If you go through twice, thrice, then what will happen? If anything happens, you will immediately have at your back of mind what my contract says, what rule says, and what is the situation, and how I can handle. And then apply common sense. Apply common sense with clean conscience, good intentions. And I am sure if all these things, all these requirements are met, you will have no problem in executing any work in the field. If at all, because there are many people, right, who will be dissatisfied if you are in a position of power, if you are in a position to take decision. There will be some who will be dissatisfied with the decision, there will be some who will not be satisfied, who will be satisfied with the decision, there will be some who will not be satisfied with it. So those who are dissatisfied, they may become disgruntled and they may raise all kinds of issues and other things. But if you have been fair, if you have been reasonable, if you have been transparent, and if you have maintained proper documentation of your decision making, absolutely no fear, right? So this is the biggest challenge that personally I feel. At organizational level, the biggest challenge is that the work must be got done in time with quality that is required. We are, as a civil engineer, we don't require the accuracy of satellite movement, right? But the desired quality must be maintained and the work must be finished within time. But then this is easier said than done. When you go to the field, there are n number of things happening, and many of the things may spring up simply unforeseen, in an unforeseen manner, right? What we call as surprises. There is nobody responsible for that. So all these things may pose challenges during the public procurement process. So this is the description I gave. Now let us move in a little structured way, so that all these things, and then at each stage of our procurement process, what are the challenges that we may face and how to mitigate them, how to negotiate that process. So our basic aim of public procurement, it is, if you meant whatever I have said, it is contained in this slide. That is 5 R's of procurement. It should be of right quality, it should be of right quantity, it should be right price, it should be right time and place, then right source. Right, it is just 5 hours of procurement, just as Buddha told 8, है ना. उसमें उन्होंने शब्द क्या यूज किया, सम्यक. सम्यक ज्ञान, यहाँ यही है कि सम्यक गुणवत्ता हो. मतलब आपका राइट मीन्स ऑप्टिमम बैलेंस मस्ट बी देयर, मीन्स इट शुड बी नाइदर एक्सेसिव नॉर fall short of our purpose. So in a nutshell, we must realize the value for money that we are spending, right? That is VFM, value for money. So value for money means value during the entire cycle of ownership, and it should be of appropriate quality, that has already been said. So how it is achieved? By giving widest by achieving widest competition, right? Our competition should not be restricted. Formulate value engineered specs are TOR, terms of reference. This is one of the most important aspect when you are going for procurement. Before when you are finalizing your tender documents, when you have identified your needs, then finalizing the specifications for that. Then appropriate packaging. What is meant by appropriate packaging? There are sometimes very smaller works, they can be bundled together, but sometimes there are many large works, they need to be distributed, divided into packages. So there has to be a balance when we can club together, when we can divide them into different small packages. That all depends on efficiency, on the basis of efficiency and economy. On that basis, we decide packaging or bundling. Then appropriate mode of bidding. What kind of bidding we need to go? Open tender inquiry, right? Limited tender inquiry, or two-stage, single-stage two-envelope bidding, or two-stage bidding, or still PPP models are there, public-private partnership model. So these are the fundamental principles, right? So right arts, and then transparency and professionalism. This is given in General GFR 2017. GFRs, you have already attended the class on GFRs. They are the bedrock of all our public financial transactions. Then they impose certain broader obligations on the procuring authority. What are these broader obligations? Which are for the general common good of the people, or for a particular purpose. For example, giving preference. Whom we give preference? For example, MSMEs, startups. Nowadays also it has come Make in India, right? Then reserving items. Again, say for example, khadi and hand spun textiles, they have been reserved for certain category of firms, for example KVIC. Then broader policy, for example Make in India. Then administrative goals. There may be certain administrative goal of the organization which need to be fulfilled. Then extended legal responsibilities. You are legally responsible when you are spending money from government exchequer, from public exchequer. At the highest level, whatever contractual issues are there, they are subject to judicial review, means they can be questioned in higher judiciary. Then manner of decision making. As I told you, if proper documentation is there, your note sheet, your measurement books, these are admissible evidence in court of law. Then RTI Act and Prevention of Corruption Act, you already know about that. Public accountability. How public accountability is enforced in public procurement. At the top is legislature, आपकी विधान सभा, आपकी लोक सभा, राज्य सभा, इसकी committees. Public Accounts Committee is the highest body among the committees. Then Central Vigilance Commission, Controller and Auditor General, CBI. Right? So this is some of the things that you must keep in mind. This is the broader framework of public procurement. I will not go into the details of tendering processes, right? टेंडरिंग प्रोसेसेस आप लोगों में से बहुतों ने की होगी, और अदरवाइज सीपीडब्ल्यूडी मैनुअल में बहुत स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड है कि टेंडरिंग, हाउ द टेंडरिंग इज टू बी डन, बट व्हाट आर द रिक्वायरमेंट्स बिफोर when you go for tendering, and what are the foundational principles. If you understand them, then it will be easier for you to meet those challenges that may arise. Now again, GFR, this says, another point that I was saying when the first thing, when I said that we must apply common sense. What common sense? As if I am spending from my pocket. मैं अपने घर का सामान लेने के लिए मैं जाता हूँ, बाजार में देखता हूँ, 4 जगह पूछता हूँ, जहाँ मुझे ठीक लगता है रेट, सबसे कम लगता है नहीं, जहाँ मुझे ठीक लगता है रेट मैं वहाँ से लेता हूँ, जहाँ मेरे को क्वालिटी मेरे हिसाब से मिलती है. So when I exercise that kind of prudence, as if I am spending from my pocket, this is expected of the persons who are engaged in public procurement. Then right quantity and right, it should be prima facie, visible, कि हाँ ये सही है. And not to own advantage, अपने फायदे के लिए नहीं होना चाहिए, न किसी दूसरे को जानबूझ के फायदा पहुंचाने के लिए. Neither a person nor a group of person. Those who are in the administrative, from the administrative point of view, allowances must be regulated so that they do not become the source of income for some people. Then avoid conflict of in respect of past issues. So if your some relative is a contractor, or some kind of thing, similar conflict of interest arises, then it is better to declare that and not be involved in that tendering process, or either you go out of the process or that person goes out of process. So now let us come to statutory framework for public procurement. I said that legal responsibilities are there, how this is enforced, but there is no exclusive law that governs public procurement. There are different laws which get applied when we go for public procurement, and the first and foremost is Article 299 of the Constitution. It says that if an agreement has been signed on behalf of the Government of India, it is binding on Government of India to discharge that liability. But who will sign the agreement on behalf of the government or Government of India? Only a person who is specifically authorized to do so by the President of India. Who is that officer normally in central government? Executive engineer. That is why whenever tenders are invited, it is normally invited by executive engineer, and it begins with that so and so on behalf of the President of India invites the tender, right? So there are certain safeguards. This invitation of tender on behalf of President of India provides safeguard, as well as it also it also throws more responsibility on your shoulders. It makes your shoulders heavy, because you are doing for President of India. There is also a safeguard. If there is any litigation, you may be submitting your returns, etc., in the court of law, but the case is being fought by Honorable President of India. So entire chain will be there. Whatever returns whatever replies in the court you submit. Normally, what is the process? आप लोगों में से अगर किसी ने उसको अनुभव किया हो, we prepare the draft. It goes through our head of the organization to the ministry, and from the head of the ministry to the legal Ministry of Law and Legal Affairs. Once they okayed it, okay, then only that comes back from the same channel and then it is filed in the court. So there are safeguards also, but then it also gives you additional responsibility. Then there is fundamental right, article 19(1)(g), everyone has right to carry profession. So the profession and their businesses, nobody can stop. Then some specific ones, Indian Contracts Act, Sale of Goods Act, then Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. We will be dealing with arbitration and conciliation tomorrow when we go for contract management, how the disputes arise and what are the how these can be resolved. Then Competition Act 2002, probably it will not be required in our field of execution. Then Information Technology Act, taxation laws, income tax and GST. So whenever you carry out procurement or whenever you make payment for works, then after exceeding a certain payment, if a payment exceeds certain amount of tax, you are responsible for deducting tax at source, right? So now let us come to procurement of goods, works and services. That is what I was telling was the foundational foundations for public procurement. Now we come to procurement, goods, work, service. There is only minor difference between procurement and purchase. Procurement covers the entire process from the moment you identify your need, firm up specifications, prepare tender documents, invite tenders, carry out procurement, make payment, all those, warranty, etc. But purchase is a specific transaction within that process. You are giving money, you are taking goods or services back. But in general, more or less they are used in an interchangeable way. So acquisition may be of the type of ownership, or it may be right to use, obligations to service, but mind it, it must not be without any consideration. There must be some consideration paid for that. You as an executive engineer cannot accept an offer from some firm if they say कि हम ये काम आपका मुफ्त में कर देते. Why? Because there may be certain vested interest of that agency or firm which we may not be able to foresee at that point of time. And at a later date, that firm or agency may gain advantage over others by virtue of this. So that is only one possibility. There are other possibilities also. So any acquisition must not be without any consideration. Method of acquisition: by purchase, by lease, license, hire, outsourcing, whatever. Sources of funds: public funds are there, and then other sources are there, grants, loans, etc. And who procures? This is the procuring entity. This procuring entity has been defined in the GFR also, and in Make in India order also. Who is a procuring entity? Government of India department or subordinate attached offices or subordinate offices, their heads of offices, they are the procuring entity. So it must be got done through a procurement contract, and that results in a purchase order, supply order, work order, consultancy contract, service contract. These are the components of now goods, works and services. Now what is the difference between goods and works? We identify, yes, services is a different thing, services intangible, but goods and works, how do we differentiate how goods, how a procurement is of goods and how a procurement is of works? Because any work involves some goods, procurement of some goods and also execution of some works. So how will you classify whether it is procurement of goods or whether it is a procurement of works? For example, a small work of repairing your vehicle. You have sent your vehicle to the workshop, it has been repaired, the bill has been sent by your authorized dealer, authorized workshop. That bill contains two parts: material and then labor cost. How will you classify this? Whether it is work or whether it is procurement of goods. Why? How do you classify? It is not important. What is the reason behind that? That is important. And that reason must be recorded. This is a very frequent occurrence, so that is why we do not record. You are perfectly right, it is works. You are perfectly right. But why it is works? Labor component there may be in many, for example, a telemetry tender, a telemetry contract. There is also a labor component and there is also a supply component. Supply of all those telemetry equipment, and that installation part is there, labor equipment. How will you classify that? It is procurement of goods or procurement of works? Or whether we can split it, some part procurement of goods and some part procurement of works. The first thing is, after we have executed a contract or once we have given a contract, then splitting it subsequently is not permitted. ये तो एकदम clear, ठीक है? अगर आपने works का contract दिया है, that also includes some supply component, then contractor, if he say, if he or she comes to you and says ki I have a substantial component of supply of goods in this contract, so please let it be treated separately and works be treated separately. This is not permitted. This has happened. CVC publication is there. This kind of splitting has happened, and that has caused very steep cost overruns. I will give examples of that, but this is not. Actually, goods and open. Now, how goods have been defined? These are defined in the procurement guidelines issued by the Ministry of Department of Expenditure, right? So this is the definition of goods. Now it includes all those things which we commonly identify as goods, but then there are certain things comprising an integrated production process or such other categories of goods or intangible products like technology transfer, licenses, patents or other intellectual properties, but excludes books, etc., procured or otherwise acquired by a procuring entity. Procurement of goods may include certain small work or some services which are incidental or consequential to supply of such goods. This is important. Which are incidental or consequential to supply of such goods. I have sent my vehicle for repair, so it is works because it is just the reverse. Again, I will also come to that. Or if I say telemetry component, there the substantial part is spent on telecom equipment. Installation is incident. वो मुझे लगाना ही है. So normally at many places this telemetry tender has been done under M&D. It has been booked under M&D. So what is important is incidental or consequential. If supply of goods is incidental or consequential, or works is incidental or consequential. Similarly, now it includes licenses, right? Now if you procure say MS Office, licensed version. How will you classify it? अब गुड्स में ले लिया, अब इसको टीएनपी में लोगे कि नहीं लोगे? हाँ, क्यों? जब आपने गुड्स में लिया, उसके साथ लाइसेंस है, ये कहता है कि लाइसेंसेस भी उसमें इंक्लूडेड है गुड्स के साथ। अब आप इसको टीएनपी में लोगे कि नहीं लोगे? गुड्स है, कंज्यूमेबल तो नहीं है, माइक्रो, ये तो सॉफ्टवेयर है, इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी राइट भी इन्वॉल्व है, लाइसेंस भी इन्वॉल्व है। हाँ, स्क्रैप वैल्यू नहीं हो सकती है। हम तो कई चीजों को हम डिस्ट्रॉय करते हैं, जब हम कई चीजें ऑब्सोलीट हो जाती हैं, हम उनको डिस्ट्रॉय कर देते हैं। हाँ, डिजिटल तो है, लेकिन डिजिटल को टीएनपी में नहीं लेना है या लेना है, दोनों ही चीजें नहीं लिखी हैं। नहीं तो लॉजिक क्या है? द थिंग इज वी मस्ट थिंक ओवर इट। टीएनपी हमारे लिए ये आसान हो जाता है, टीएनपी रजिस्टर में मत लो, फ्रॉम द प्रैक्टिकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू। टीएनपी रजिस्टर में नहीं लिया तो उसको संभाल के रखने का हेडेक नहीं है, लेकिन फिर क्या एमएएस में लोगे आप उसको? अगर टीएनपी में नहीं लोगे तो क्या एमएएस में लोगे? कहां इसको रखोगे आप? अकाउंटिंग कैसे करोगे इसकी? सर्विसेज नहीं है ये तो। अब बेसिकली ये तो आपने एक इंटेंजिबल गुड्स खरीदी। इंटेंजिबल क्या है कि आपका सॉफ्टवेयर इसमें इंस्टॉल्ड हो गया, उसका लाइसेंस आपके पास है, उसका इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी राइट किसी और के पास है, और वो आपने खरीदा है और वो आप उसको यूज कर रहे हो। वैसे पहले तो एक सीडी भी आती थी, आजकल तो सीडी भी नहीं आती, आप सीधे नेट से डाउनलोड कर लेते हो और लाइसेंस आ जाता है आपके पास। हाँ, नहीं ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। लाइफ तो हर एक चीज की होती है, लाइफ तो हर इक्विपमेंट का, हर गुड्स का एक फिक्स लाइफ तो होगा। मैंने अभी तक के सॉफ्टवेयर, एक तो यह है सॉफ्टवेयर तो ओरिजिनल खरीदते ही कम है हम लोग लेकिन जहां भी अगर कभी खरीदा है किसी ने, तो मैंने टीएनपी में क्लासिफाई करते हुए देखा नहीं है, तो इसलिए मैं इसके बारे में अभी कोई कमेंट नहीं कर रहा हूं। आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू इग्नाइट योर माइंड्स हाउ दिस शुड बी ट्रीटेड, because this thing will come up after say some time। क्योंकि ऐसा है कि ये क्रैक्ड और पायरेटेड वर्जन्स का यूज करना ज्यादा दिन चलेगा नहीं। गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की तरफ से डायरेक्शंस भी इशूड हैं कई साल पहले कि आपको लाइसेंस्ड वर्जन्स ही यूज करना है, और जब से ये साइबर सिक्योरिटी का इशू आया है आपको ये करना है। और मतलब ऐसा है, पायरेटेड लेने से सिक्योरिटी कॉम्प्रोमाइज होती है, तो ये लाइसेंस्ड वर्जन ऑफ सॉफ्टवेयर विल बिकम वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। फॉर एग्जांपल जीआईएस के जो आर्क इन्फो या इस तरह के हैं, या ऑटोकैड वगैरह है, ये तो मोस्टली आप लाइसेंस्ड वर्जन ही यूज करते हैं, है ना। तो जब लाइसेंस वर्जन यूज करते हैं, आपके पास लाइसेंस है, इट इज एन टाइप ऑफ इंटेंजिबल गुड। पर्सनली आई फील इट शुड बी क्लासिफाइड अंडर टीएन। अब इट विल मेक थिंग्स कॉम्प्लिकेटेड। आपका हार्ड डिस्क क्रैश हो गया, हाँ, इट इज इंटेंजिबल, आप फिजिकल काउंट नहीं कर सकते। यू कैन वेरीफाई इन द कंप्यूटर इटसेल्फ। You go to the computer, see if it has been installed, and see if the license is there. Corrupt हो गया, if it is licensed one, you can reinstall it. लाइसेंस वर्जन का यही फायदा है, वो आपको फिर से इंस्टॉल कर देगा, आप बैकअप भी ले सकेंगे उसका, है ना, तो आपका डेटा भी सिक्योर होगा। नहीं, सर्विसेज में तो बिल्कुल नहीं आएगा। गुड्स तो है, मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि दिस इज एन इंटेंजिबल, इंटेंजिबल जिसको आप छू नहीं सकते, छू के देख नहीं सकते, दिस इज एन इंटेंजिबल। ऐसा, दिस इज व्हाट आई फील। बट सो इन अब तो खैर बात ही खत्म हो गई, लेकिन आई हैव नेवर सीन एनीवन क्लासिफाइंग procurement of software with license as TNP. I have never seen it, but just a discussion on that. शायद हमको जल्दी करना पड़ेगा, अदरवाइज बहुत लंबा चल जाएगा हम लोगों का ये। Now works. Now work, it has been defined any activity sufficient in itself to fulfill an economic or technical function. But here again you see, supply of some materials or certain services may be incidental or consequential to and part of such work. Now here supply of goods is incidental. जो आपका व्हीकल रिपेयर वाला केस, या जो हम कहीं बिग कंस्ट्रक्शन में जाते हैं तो कई बार हम कंस्ट्रक्शन मशीनरी खरीदते हैं। Say for example, I have procured a bulldozer or an hydraulic excavator or anything where it is charged. It is not charged under TNP. It is charged under special TNP, which is a works head, works component. Q special TNP. Right? So it is part of works. It is not part of goods. Goods generally is classified under TNP or M&D. So this is important distinction to keep in mind how you are going to classify. Services I am not taking up right now. So summing up what we discussed, goods and works. What is important is, in goods, small works or works are incidental or consequential to supply of goods. In case of works, some supply of materials or services incidental or consequential. Right? We have already discussed this. Case of vehicle repairs, we discussed telemetry. Both with OB engine, I am not discussing, because we have in its place we have discussed procurement of software. Right? So do I need to read again goods and services? No? Okay. So coming to this procurement cycle or process. So as I told you, procurement is a complete process, right? Purchase is just one aspect of it. It starts with identification of need assessment, what you want. Then what you want is easier. Assessment of need, what means, and why you want, and how you are going to procure that want or that need will be fulfilled. That is decided by need assessment and finalize specifications. This is very important part of this need assessment and finalize specifications. This is why I am saying, I will just give you an example from CVC cited cases. CVC has brought out big manuals on that, and they have cited one case on that. The case was like that in a port, wharf cranes are engaged. So they were using 3 tons and 6 ton cranes. Now they thought that we are going to have 10 ton cranes, so that we will have more, we can handle more volumes of goods at port. So they procured 10 ton cranes. Now when the chief technical examiner of CVC, there is one branch of CVC which is called CTE, chief technical examiner. They don't go into the audit part, they go into the technical aspects where mistakes have occurred. So they can identify whether the mistake has been a genuine mistake or whether it has been done intentionally. So in this case, 3 tons and 6 tons को replace करने के लिए they have procured 10 ton cranes. When they went and they analyzed the cargo, what they found, that for the last so many years, the cargo that they were handling were even about 3 tons or so. Even their 6-ton cranes were also not being used fully. And nor in future, near foreseeable future, there was a probability of such heavy cargoes coming. So that point came up that you have not analyzed and assessed your need properly. Now, when 10-ton cranes were procured first, you are paying much higher value for something which can be done with a lesser value equipment, lesser priced equipment. Then there is inefficiency getting built up in your system, where the work which can be done by a 3-ton crane, you are utilizing 10 tons. You are using more fuel, and there are other accessories and paraphernalia required for heavier cranes. So kind of inefficiency was built into the system, and ultimately those cranes became non-functional. So the CTE pointed out that need was not properly assessed, and because it was not properly assessed, the specifications arrived were not correct, not required, not as per requirement of the job. So this is very important: need assessment and finalize the spec, and then procurement planning. Once you have finalized what I want, then you need to plan your procurement. We will go into the next slides on procurement planning. Then you go for bid invitation. Means bid invitation, before that you prepare bid docs, then how you are going to publish. So it is published, then it's received and opening up. Then bid evaluation. Then evaluate as per predefined criteria, and then award of contract. Contract execution, then contract management and closure, and last disposal of scrap. Every stage will present you with one or more challenges. No stage is to be taken up lightly. What challenges can come up? Let us start with need assessment. So this is in one slide description. Our need should be described in a very unambiguous way. This should be as per guidelines. When you describe certain things, there are guidelines given in your CPWD works manual or procurement manual of Government of India, and then avoid brand names, etc. Because it restricts the field of competition. So need, how will you describe need? By description and specification. Specification freezes it. And why it is important? To realize value for money. If you have properly analyzed and give detailed description and specification, then transparency is achieved. Competition is achieved, and level playing field. Because once you avoid brand names or any other things, then anybody can bid, right? So level playing field will simply not come from need assessment, need description, need specification. It will also come at the PQ criteria stage. That we will deal later on. Why it is important? Specification framing properly framing specification. Why it is important? Because then it becomes the benchmark for processing the received bids. How will you compare? What is the benchmark to compare of different bids that you have received? You will compare them with your specification, where bids are responsive or not. If they fulfill the specifications that you have specified, then it is responsive, otherwise it is not responsive. So responsiveness to bid, examination of the bid, comparison with the benchmark, and then ultimately evaluation. So all things depend on the specific. So when you identify need, you also need to lay down how you are going to meet that need, how you are going to procure. whether you are going to go for outright purchase or leasing or hiring or outsourcing, then life cycle cost must be considered. अभी हम लोग व्हीकल लेते हैं तो हम तो सिर्फ व्हीकल खरीद लेते हैं, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा हुआ तो हमारे पास ड्राइवर है कि नहीं ये देख लेते है ना. अभी तो आजकल ड्राइवर भी है कि नहीं पूछते हैं, क्योंकि ड्राइवर सबको किसी के पास है नहीं, सब मोस्टली आउटसोर्सिंग से आते. तो व्हाट आर अदर अल्टरनेटिव्स अवेलेबल? कंपैटिबिलिटी एंड इंटरऑपरेबिलिटी. ये जब आप compatibility and interoperability is very important in particularly in one field that we are dealing, that is telemetry systems. I think Brahmaputra board is also installing certain real time SCADA system, telemetry equipment etc. अभी नहीं है पर आएगा, क्योंकि because that has to be done, that has to be got done. तो ये आएगा. तो इसमें क्या है कि जब आप एक स्टेज पे at one point of time you have installed one kind of instruments, say after 10 years you go for expansion, then at that time it becomes very important that your previous new system which is you are going to procure must be compatible and also interoperable with the previous system. There may be software differences and other things, so there is one kind of service has come up nowadays, system integrator service. So that is part of services. Or if you are going for a new telemetry tender, then it becomes incidental or consequential to that work. So it will not be a separate services contract, but a works contract or a goods contract, depending upon the quantum. Again, as I said, need assessment must be of for right quantity, time, schedule and place. आपको सही समय पे जब चाहिए आपकी वस्तु उपलब्ध होना चाहिए. It should not be delayed, and it should not be procured that it is not being used or it will be used after 1 year, because our budgeting is from year to year. So we must plan for procurement which is at the max going to be used next year, not much beforehand. And also it should not be there कि now my work is going to start and I have not been able to procure a particular machine, because then my work will be delayed. And if suppose department is to supply the machine and civil work contractor is someone separate, if he is not able to execute the work, then what will happen? He will delay the start of the work. Later on he will claim for that particular delay, that I have mobilized all my men and machinery, but I could not start work because of the deficiency on the part of the department, and therefore this is the claim for that. So these things happen. So the quantity that you have to acquire, it should be right quantity, but it should be your procurement process should be geared such that your procurement is complete in the proper time schedule. Formulate specifications we will further explore, and then estimation of cost. This is also very important, right? So I will just give you a few examples from CBC manual, or CBC has also issued one OM on which they have given a large number of cases. This is one such thing, shortcomings of general nature observed during intensive examination of works and contracts. You can find it on net. आपके पास है या नहीं? Otherwise this will also be, I have made the folder of this material such that it will be supplied to you, right? So shortcomings of general nature. This is intensive examination of works and contracts. There is also one manual which is on procurement of goods and services, right? So this is from works and contracts, and how things are manipulated either mistakenly or intentionally. See, the first one, this case, A steel PSU processed a case for supply and installation of certain equipments for upgradation of their plant. अब हमको प्लांट अपग्रेड करना है, ये सप्लाई एंड इंस्टॉलेशन ऑफ इक्विपमेंट के लिए उन्होंने कर दिया टेंडर. After having finalized the tenders, the contractor was allowed to supply the equipment. In the meantime, PSU dropped the original proposal to upgrade the plant. The left hand not knowing what right is doing. First we have planned to upgrade the plant. उसके लिए आपको कुछ मशीनें, इक्विपमेंट जो चाहिए था, आपने प्रोसेस चालू किया, खरीद लिया, रिसीव कर लिया. At a later stage, that PSU has dropped the idea of upgrading the plant. Now what will happen of that? That has become an infructuous expenditure. So not foreseeing the things that are going to happen in near future. This is an example. Then आपको मैंने ये वाला एग्जाम्पल दिया 3 टन 6 टन कैपेसिटी क्रेन्स का. और एक बड़ा मजेदार केस है इसमें. ये रोल ऑफ कंसल्टेंट वाला, ये मैं बताता हूँ. एक कंसल्टेंसी पीएसयू, तो अब ये नाम तो नहीं दिया उन्होंने, लेकिन अब कंसल्टेंसी पीएसयू तो कितने हैं हमारे यहाँ, ज़्यादा नहीं है, आप गेस कर सकते हैं. which had provided consultancy for hundreds of projects to other private sector and private organization, appointed a consultant for construction of their own office building. अब आपको नीड है नहीं, पर आपको हो सकता है किसी को एंगेज करना हो तो आपने कर लिया, लेकिन ऐसी चीजें फिर छुपती नहीं है. ये वाला केस जो है ना, इसको आप पढ़िए. मैं आपको ब्रीफ में बताता हूं, मैं आपको बता रहा हूं, फिर आप इसको फुर्सत में पढ़िएगा. बहुत मजेदार केस है. मतलब एक ये पीएसयू है, एक ये ऑयल पीएसयू है, इसको कुछ इलेक्ट्रिकल जॉब करना था. दे हैड हायर्ड ए कंसल्टेंट, पीएसयू कंसल्टेंट. कंसल्टेंट हायर किया उन्होंने, और उनको जरूरत थी उस इक्विपमेंट वगैरह के लिए 11 केवी सप्लाई, राइट. तो 11 केवी सप्लाई का इक्विपमेंट लेने की उनको जरूरत थी. वो उन्होंने एक कंसल्टेंट को एंगेज किया. कंसल्टेंट ने जो भी टेंडर वेंडर बनाया सब किया. नाउ दे हैव बिड फॉर टेंडर्स, राइट, इनवाइटेड टेंडर्स, प्रोक्योरमेंट हुआ. उसके बाद पता चला कि हमारे यहाँ तो सप्लाई 22 केवी की है. All this 11 kV gone. अब इसमें there is another twist. That consultant, he himself was one of the bidders. The one who was framed, he was allowed to bid for that. And then the cost was much higher. जो उनका एस्टिमेटेड कॉस्ट था उससे बिड कॉस्ट वाज मच हायर. तो उन्होंने बहुत कुछ जगलरी इधर उधर कर करा के 20% से भी ऊपर की कॉस्ट को जस्टिफाई करके ले ली. लेकिन अल्टीमेटली कुछ यूज हुआ नहीं, बिकॉज द सप्लाई इट वाज इनकम्पैटिबल. एक तरफ आपके पास सिर्फ 22 केवी है और आपको 11 केवी का आपने सिस्टम खरीद लिया है. सो यू हैव टू इनकर एडिशनल कॉस्ट टू मेक देम कंपैटिबल. इसका पूरा डिटेल आप पढ़ेंगे तो आपको लर्निंग भी होगी और गुस्सा भी आएगा, और एक तरह से आप कहेंगे कि ये क्या है, हंसी भी आएगी कि these sorts of things happen. तो इसमें है ऐसे कई केसेस. ये सारे मतलब जो है आपके चैलेंजेस हैं जो डिफरेंट स्टेजेस पे अराइज करते हैं. द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, द फर्स्ट स्टेज इटसेल्फ, that is need assessment and formulation of specifications. It is most important and it is given the least attention. That is why I am giving this so much of time, that need assessment and formulation of specification, इस पे आपको बहुत ज़्यादा ध्यान देना है. So formulation of technical specifications. These are the requirements, right? It should be unambiguous, precise, objective, functional, broad-based, generic, standardized, measurable. It should be measurable. There are certain things which cannot be measured. How will you specify them? To meet bare essential needs without superfluous or non-essential features. Can you cite an example from your day-to-day office working? Say for example, for my office, I want to have one TV. Do I need to go for 4K, 8K TV? आजकल तो बहुत बड़े-बड़े भी आ रहे हैं एक से एक. Is it required? A simple HD TV will do. Maximum say 40, 44 inch, 32 inch, depending upon the size of your hall or cabin or whatever. So if you go for 8K, 4K, what they are meant for? They are for gaming or some high precision works where you can see the small deviations or entertain. So if I purchase such a TV for my office, it will be something super. I am spending something which is not needed in my office. घर के लिए मैं ले सकता हूँ. I may have, my family may have their entertainment from that. Normally it is based on standards. This is very important. Then make use of best practices, that is similar successful procurement in other organizations. Then value for money. This should never be lost sight of. It must be realized always. That is, avoid procurement of obsolete goods. Material should be new, unused, most recent or current models. कभी कभी ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि हमारे पास बजट कम हो तो उसको देख के हम कोई पुराने स्पेसिफिकेशंस की नई चीज ले लें. But that should be avoided. Now, calling for samples with bid for evaluation is strictly prohibited. But there are certain things which cannot be specified, right? For example, you want to purchase some cloth. How will you describe its texture, its feel, soft होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए? How will you specify? ऐसे cases में जहाँ पर आप ऐसे जहाँ where the things are such indeterminable characteristics such as shade, tone, feel, finish, texture, तो आप अपना reference sample अपने specifications के साथ लगा सकते. मुझे इस तरह का चाहिए. Then essential technical particulars. This has been stated in GFR as well as your that procurement manual. So essential, whatever I have told you, these are also given in the procurement manuals. I will not read each and every one, but you must know whenever you find time, the procurement manual, CPWD works manual, these things you must go through. They will help you during execution. When something arises in the field, at that time you will not have time to open the book and see what is the case and where it is written and what. So you must have the first hand knowledge where is what, and then first go through that. All these things which I have told you earlier, it is given in this essential. This is an extract from GFR as well as procurement manual. So risks and mitigation. So what are the risks? The need may be artificially created or inflated to benefit chosen one or few. For example, that 10-ton crane case, that need artificially created or inflated, right? So how to avoid that? Keep records of decision making and data used. That decision making record, why you have gone for a 10-ton? Was there any proper justification for procuring 10-ton crane? If there was good justification, good means proper and reasonable justification based on proper forecast, etc., then that may be acceptable. It may be thought, yes, market conditions keep on changing. For 1 year that kind of cargo has not come, but yes, this is my reasoning and it will come. Maybe after one and it may take 1 more year, right? So this kind of decision making you must record those things. What decision you are, what specification you are formulating, you must record the reason behind that. Then delays in need assessment, follow shortcut, competition curtailed, value for money not. For example, if there is delay in procurement, then what happens? You go for short tender notice or procurement on nomination basis, then competition is not there as wide as it should be. So the price discovery may be vitiated by less competition. Means what? The price may not be reflective of the market price. It may be more than what should have been paid. So needs to be assessed. So in ऐसे cases में you need to assess your requirement well in advance of the time of intended use. When you are going to use, much before that, you must have assessment. Yes, this machine or this equipment I will need at this time, and my procurement cycle is going to take this much time. So when should I start that process? So that this is need to be assessed well in advance of the time of intended use. If urgently required, then approval of authority competent to grant administrative approval with justification why it could not be procured earlier. So in Brahmaputra board, it is the chairman, I think. In otherwise department for water resources, it is the secretary who can grant urgent procurement of such equipment if at all needed. Then the cost estimate may be inadequate. या तो आप due diligence has not been done, market rates have not been properly assessed, that may result in inaccurate statement, either overestimation or underestimation. Subjective description of the specifications, that should be avoided. For example, अच्छा होना चाहिए. अब अच्छा होना चाहिए का क्या definition हो? So you need to define what is expected of you in measurable terms. What we said in our earlier, when we said about need assessment, your specifications must be as far as possible in measurable terms. Then asymmetric dissemination of vital need information. So disseminating into a limited group of people, not making wide dissemination, not giving wide publicity, not publishing in many newspapers, publishing in a newspaper which is least read by people. There are many newspapers coming which you may not even have heard of. ऐसे पेपर में आपने एड निकाल दिया. Such cases are there listed by CBC. तो ताकि ऐसा है, आपने किसी को बोल दिया कि हाँ उसमें निकाला हुआ है, तुम सप्लाई कर दो, भर दो. There may not be many people knowing of that. So this kind of thing should not happen. So you give adequate communication exchange among stakeholders. जो आपके यहाँ empaneled contractors हों, उनको तो भेजिए ही सभी को. Then it should be placed on net. It should be published as advertisement in newspapers. It should be given wide public. Different offices में भेजिए notice. Now we come to procurement planning. Once you have identified your need, then how you are going to meet that need, how you are going to carry out procurement. So procuring authority to reassess quantity, appropriate aggregation means agar aapke suppose there are 4 divisions, then whether it can be aggregated 4 divisions and then combined lump sum way or wholesale procurement can be done. Then packaging or clubbing for recorded reasons. This I told you, This normally what happens, this is done for efficiency, economy, wider competition, excess of MSM. Now let us think of that. Now suppose there are many anti-erosion works going on river Brahmaputra, on the banks of river. If we think that if we make a chunk of say 100 kilometers and give one single contract, what will happen? There may be only a few contractors who will come for that, for 100 kilometer at one go, one contract. But if that 100 kilometer is divided say into 5 packages, and for 20 kilometers maybe there will be many contractors. Now when we are saying many contractors will be available, we are saying many contractors having the capability to execute the work. They should have the resources, they should have the machines, they should have the manpower, and they should have the prior experience to do those things. Financially, financial muscle. So that kind of judgment you have to make. But now suppose you have only a 10 kilometer patch of work to be done, and you do it, you divide it in 10 parts. What will happen? The eligibility criteria, the standards of eligibility criteria or guidelines for eligibility criteria that we have in our works manual, etc. There will be many smaller contractors coming up for that. They may have किसी ने 50 लाख का काम किया होगा, किसी ने 1 करोड़ का काम किया होगा, किसी ने 5 लाख का काम किया होगा, but they may be qualifying for bidding 1-1 किलोमीटर के वर्क के लिए. And then what will happen? There will be many contractors coming who do not have the capability to execute. So ultimately what will happen? Your work will suffer. जिस कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के पास कैपेसिटी नहीं है, कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है, he will not be able to execute the work in time. Say for example, my anti-erosion work must be completed before monsoon, before onset of monsoon. If a smaller contractor who doesn't have machine, who doesn't have proper experience, and if he is short-listed, it will be very difficult to get the works completed in time. So there is a compromise that you have to work out, where how much cost, what is my catchment for the contractors, how many contractors are capable of executing works of 25 crores, which can execute 50 crores, which can execute 100 crores. If for 100 crores I get 15 contractors for bidding, so be it, फिर तो कोई प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है. लेकिन अगर 100 करोड़ का मैं कॉन्ट्रैक्ट डिजाइन करता हूं, and if there are only 2 bidders, then both will make a cartel, both will struck some kind of unwritten agreement, and then you will receive rates which are far exorbitant than what you have estimated. So you will have to find a middle path, when to divide the work into different packages or when to club together. So all this is required is efficiency, economy, wider competition, then access to MSMEs. Why? Because MSME, there is one clause written for MSMEs that prior turnover, prior experience criteria can be waived off in respect of MSMEs. So there is high chance that an MSME may qualify without having the prior experience. And why? How they will come up? Because they are not required to pay EMD. So at this point of time, you will have to make a judgment, and reasoned judgment, why you are disqualifying him, or why you are not exempting that MSME from that that experience criteria. This I had done in one of the contracts, but then the MSME to whom I disallowed the exemption. They went up to the ministry and then ministry said कि allow करो भाई, because government policy is allow करना है, और government policies कहती है कि in certain cases when you are not satisfied with the credentials of the MSME, you may disallow such exemption. So I use that exception given by the government policy, made a reasoned order and disallowed them. But then higher authorities always prevail. तो उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं, जब गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी है तो let us make exceptions as less as possible. Exceptions as far as they should not be resorted. So that happens. Then eligibility or PQ criteria to be decided and declared in documents, contract documents. This is one of the areas where big conflicts arise, big cases arise, litigation, arbitration, many things happen on this PQ criteria. So it may happen that you may not disclose the PQ criteria in the tender document, so it must be mentioned in the tender document also, as well as in the NIT. The most important thing is that it should be reasonable and justifiable. Reasonable तो समझ में आता है, justifiable मतलब आपके पास proper justification होना चाहिए कि आपने ये criteria क्यों रखा. अब इसमें problems कहाँ आती है. अभी तो आपके पास CPWD works manual के हिसाब से सब कुछ दिया हुआ है कि one work of this many crores, two works of this much, three works of this in the past 3 years, in the past 4 years, turnover इतना होना चाहिए, सारी चीजें स्पेसिफाइड है. लेकिन इसमें प्रॉब्लम कहाँ आती है, तो इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ PQ क्राइटेरिया. Now PQ means pre-qualification. आप में से जो नए हैं, PQ criteria determine bidder eligibility and ensure fair competition. The pre-qualification. Poorly defined criteria can lead to non-transparent contracts awards, because there may be many people who may be otherwise qualified, but here because of your PQ they may not be able to qualify. And favoritism and corruption, obvious. Disqualification of capable firms. Common issue is why this happens. It doesn't always happen with malintentions, bad intentions. It may happen because of our a little lackadaisical way. Copy paste. मैंने पुराने टेंडर से ये PQ क्राइटेरिया है उठाया, आपने नए टेंडर में कॉपी पेस्ट कर, without thinking that now in new contracts the things have changed. So it should not be a mechanical copy pasting, but it should be linked with requirement of your new tender right now. So common issue is copy pasting outdated PQ condition without tailoring to current project needs. So PQ criteria are the gatekeepers of ethical procurement. Means here, if your PQ criteria is correct, then it is likely that further procurement process will also go ethical. If misused, they distort the entire bidding process. So what are the common irregularities observed by CVC here? So these are the you can say challenges of PQ. Turnover criteria mismatched with project size. You have one firm, they wanted to get some purchase of rupees 10 crore, but in their PQ criteria they specified that the bidder should have 100 crores of turnover. Now if you want to make a purchase of 10 crore, why do you want a turnover of 100 crore? So obviously many of the firms which would otherwise be capable of supplying this 10 crore value equipment, etc., they will be disqualified because of this restricting clause. Then arbitrary requirements. This used to happen earlier. Sometimes we say ISO certification, sometimes profit history. कंप्यूटर खरीदने के लिए या इसमें कि नहीं आप या और कोई इक्विपमेंट खरीदना है, हमने उसमें लगा दिया कि इट शुड बी ISO certified. Earlier there were certain Indian companies also which were selling computers, those desktops, HCL, Infosystems and others. So and there were competition. Some multinationals had ISO certifications, they did not have the ISO certificate. Or similarly specifying that the supplier of computer must have worked for the last 3 years, must be in profit for the last 3 years. Now how it is relevant to my procurement? That firm may have not been able to earn profit for the last 2 years or 3 years, but it may be capable of supplying them. Then vague experience conditions and undefined similar works. This similar works definition, this must be very specific when we are saying. When we say ki similar works of this much quantity, then that similar works must be well defined in your contract documents. So define, these are the CPP guidelines for transparent tendering. Define similar work clearly and contextually. In whatever context you are now doing work, your work, similar work should be compatible with that. Then match turnover and experience to actual project scope. Just as I gave you an example कि 10 करोड़ के परचेज के लिए 100 करोड़ का टर्नओवर अनरीजनेबल अनजस्टिफाइबल. Then turnover greater than 30% of estimated cost for the last 3 years. These are the objective parameters given. Experience 3 works greater than 40%, 2 works greater than 50%, 1 work of cost greater than 80% of estimated cost. This is normally we are adopting now. Then include performance personal equipment criteria as needed. These may be required many a time in either civil construction work or big works or even consultancy works also. How many experts you have? Generally consultancy works, in consultancy bids, we seek this information. Then avoid unrelated conditions. For example, certifications not relevant to scope. For example, ISO. What is the time? आप लोग चाय भी ज़्यादा देर पी लिए, उतनी देर तो अभी एक्स्ट्रा लगेगा. 4:30 नहीं, tomorrow is contract management. Contract management में I want to give you about details about case disputes, some case studies, as well as the process of arbitration and conciliation. Arbitration and conciliation nobody teaches in our courses, right? हमारी भी induction training हुई, arbitration होता है इतना पता है, ठीक है, लेकिन nobody gives teaches what is arbitration. So I thought to include a few slides on arbitration and conciliation, so that especially those of you who have come up entered in service recently, you must know the knowledge. Others may be exposed to that because of their field experience. So this is misuse of PQ criteria. Some of the case studies are there, just as I told you that estimated value was 10 crore, but PQ criteria set was 100 crore annual turn. Then ISO certification, profit in last 2. So what was the outcome? It disqualified reputed firms, including it. So these are the challenges and risks involved. So ethical framing, this is your checklist for framing PQ criteria. That is general guidelines. Your PQ should be tailored to project scope. Criteria are measurable and subjective. Similar work is clearly defined. Then financial criteria about turnover and work experience criteria here that I already told you. Then resources and capability, whether personal, equipment, etc. Then avoid these pitfalls. no arbitrary conditions, no vague cutoff dates or undefined experience. For example, in one case, they said experience of say 3 works of 40% without specifying in the last 3 years or 5 years. So the firm, the contractor who got the bid, he in the last 10 years he had not done any work of that kind. 10 years before that bidding date he had done that kind of. So that cutoff dates must be mentioned specifically, not it should not be omitted, and no bundling of unrelated work. Sometimes unrelated works, for example, false ceiling works and laying of AC ducts. लगता है कि एक ही काम है, बिकॉज फॉल सीलिंग किया उसके पहले एसी डक्ट जाना चाहिए, तो एसी डक्टिंग होगा, फिर फॉल सीलिंग करेगा, एक ही कॉन्ट्रैक्टर कर देगा. इट इज नॉट लाइक दैट. AC ducting is a work of AC contract. It is a highly specialized job, and this is our civil work. सिविल वर्क या कह लो इंटीरियर डेकोरेटर्स का वर्क है ये. सो अनरिलेटेड वर्क्स को अगर हम कंबाइन करेंगे और उससे बेस पे हम PQ क्राइटेरिया बनाएंगे, देन व्हाट विल हैपन? Probably you may not be able to get any bidder who qualifies in both these works, because both are entirely different fields. तो पैकेजिंग के बारे में हमने देख लिया. मिटिगेशन जो है, क्लियर पॉलिसी फॉर पैकेजिंग एंड बंडलिंग. क्योंकि पैकेजिंग में आप लोगों ने देखा होगा अक्सर ऑडिट पैरा आता है, यू हैव स्प्लिट द वर्क इनटू स्मॉलर पीसेस just to avoid obtaining approval of higher authority. Right? Packaging is also a kind of splitting, but with adequate and reasonable logical justice. तो ये हमें ध्यान में रखना है. अब हम आ जाते हैं परचेज प्रेफरेंस, मेक इन इंडिया, स्टार्टअप्स एंड MSMEs. स्टार्टअप्स एंड MSMEs में आई विल नॉट डील. मेक इन इंडिया जरूर आप लोगों को मैं बताना चाहता हूं. मेक इन इंडिया गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी है. नाउ यू वेरी मच नो, अब तो और भी आगे बढ़ गए हम तो आत्मनिर्भर भारत की ओर. तो दिस वाज एनेबल्ड द गवर्नमेंट, this public procurement order 2017. By this the policy of government was declared, and then this has also been enabled by rule 153 of GFR, and then 2 orders were issued, 4 June 20 and 16 September 20. These are given in your study material. What they do, in essence, they have defined the what is local content and different types of suppliers. What is local content? In which value addition has been done within the country, and who is local supplier and non-local supplier. Local supplier again divided in two, class 1 local supplier and class 2 local supplier. Who is class 1 local supplier? Whose goods, services or works meet the minimum local content as prescribed for class 1 local supplier. Local value addition, local content must be above a specified limit. At present this limit is 50%. Means whatever goods you are going to procure, if 50% value addition is being done in India, then its supplier will be classified as class 1 local supplier. Lower than that and up to 20% it is class 2 local supplier, and less than 20 it will be treated, or any foreigner, it will be treated as non-local supplier. So how these are important? Class 1 local supplier is eligible for bidding everywhere. Class 2 local supplier with some limitations, and non-local suppliers normally not permitted unless and until the cost exceeds 200 crores. Then you go for global bidding and other suppliers will also come. Eligibility of class 1 supplier I told you, and global tender inquiry shall not be issued with estimated value of purchase less than 200 crore. Now there is another important thing, that is purchase preference. What is purchase preference? Class 1 local supplier in procurements will be given purchase preference up to a margin of 20%. What does it mean? आप लोगों ने कभी किया है इसको? Local make in India implement किया है? This comes like this. Say you have invited a tender, right? And L1 is not your. If L1 is class 1 local supplier, no problem, you give the entire work to him. But if he is not a class 1 local supplier, then what will happen? Then you go to the class 1 local supplier who is the lowest bidder among class 1 local, just above that. You got my point? L1 के ऊपर class 1 local supplier, if he is within 20% of the lowest bid, up to 20% high, then he will be given a chance to match the lowest bid and the work will be given. So class 1 local supplier को ये benefit है. Exemption of small purchases, at present that limit is 5 lakhs. उसमें ये चीज अप्लाई नहीं होगी. Now these are two very important things. These were introduced subsequently when relations with our other countries, है ना, हाँ, गलवान happened, नेपाल में कुछ हुआ, ये सब चीजें. तो इसमें ये है कि those countries which are adopting restrictive policies for our firms, our contractors, not allowing them to bid or not allowing them to participate in work, etc., then similar kind of treatment will be given to their. They will not be allowed to bid. This was reciprocal. Another thing was this: countries sharing land borders with India. The countries which share land boundaries with India, this order specifies that before they can participate in any government contract, they must get themselves registered with appropriate authority. So I will just give you a snapshot of this. This is this requirement of registration. This is the OM dated 23/2/23 and the other reciprocity clause that has already come into effect in 2020 itself. So this is in short this Make in India provisions. And now this is very important. GEM also is implementing this. Make in India provisions. So system of bidding, single two-stage, but nowadays through GEM we are procuring. So this is now important. I think you have had your classes for GEM, so we will skip. I understand. दूर से आ रहे हैं और थक भी गए, दिन भर से क्लासेस कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. अब ये है कि सेलेक्ट मोड ऑफ प्रोक्योरमेंट. आप लोग जानते हैं ओपन टेंडर इंक्वायरी क्या है, देन लिमिटेड टेंडर इंक्वायरी क्या है, शॉर्ट टेंडर इंक्वायरी क्या है. देयर आर डिफरेंट पीपीपी मॉडल्स, राइट. तो ये पीपीपी मॉडल्स मैं आपको कल बताऊंगा. अभी जस्ट आपको बता देता हूँ. जो आपने बहुत सारे ऐसे नॉमेनक्लेचर सुने होंगे, बीओटी, बिल्ड ऑपरेट ट्रांसफर, build own operate transfer, build own operate, BOLT. So these are different kinds of ये है BOT, BOOT, BOO, BOLT. So these are different kinds of PPP models. We will discuss it tomorrow under contract management. open tender inquiry. I think इसको मैं I can skip this, right? और let us do it tomorrow. अगर अभी हो जाता है तो हम कल कर सकते हैं, कोई बात नहीं है, हैं? हाँ नहीं ठीक है, कल कर लेंगे. हाँ, I understand. Otherwise, if you want to study the material that will be given to you, that will be self-contained, links, etc. If you follow those links, the links will contain the original source also, just as I showed you the OM, etc., the orders also. So you, at your leisure time, because in 1 hour's time, it is very difficult to complete this, and this is a very exhaustive topic. Just as I told you, at every stage of your procurement cycle, at every step, there are many pitfalls, right? So those are the challenges for you to navigate, to mitigate. So how, what are those challenges and how to mitigate? There is also these two very good publications of CBC. One I just showed you, another is on procurement of goods. Both have been brought out after intense examination by Chief Technical Examiner of CBC, under CBC. So they have given very illustrative examples, and if you go through them, one is of 2002, another is of 2004. If you go through them, I think you will never make any mistake in tendering. So let us close for the day. There are many things because for bid evaluation and other things, but right now let us finish. So thank you very much once again for this, and